So,
Yeah.
product operations is really an enablement function for product management. And the way that you should think about it is it helps to get the right information to the product people so that they can set the strategy. It also helps communicate how our strategy is doing and monitoring it back out. And then it also helps us understand where we make strategic decisions and how the rest of the organization comes together to give input on the product and also to make sure that product is successful. So when we talk about product operations, me and my co-author Denise Tillis, we are looking at three major categories in there. It's like one is data and insights, and it's about understanding the internal data you need to set strategy. So that's about getting stuff out of our current systems to look at it. So when I was talking about, for example, if we want to go into the enterprise, we need to see like what's our distribution of customers currently between SMB, mid-market, and enterprise, right? And then also, what products are they using? Are the enterprise people buying all of our products? Or are they buying one of our products, right? Are they using some features or all of the features? How are we churning by different types of customers, right? Um, if people are using certain types of features, are they less likely to churn, right? And that information is actually usually stuck inside organizations, like, and it lives in 80
Mm.
different types of software. So you can get revenue data and customer data out of like Salesforce, and then your revenue software or whatever you're using for accounting. Then we've got usage metrics stuck in like an Amplitude or a Pendo or something or a mix panel. And then we've got team information and what people are working on in our Jiras or our road mapping softwares. And what gets really interesting and what helps us with defining product strategy is when we can start to look at all those things together and do different cuts across those different systems to get the information that we need. And that's what the data and insights team really helps with. And ideally, this should be like a self-serve thing. We want to get to a point where, we have repeatable dashboards on there. I can give like a chief product officer some information on those things where we can go back and track without having to pull this out of systems like every single time, right? In a BI tool, how are our enterprises doing? Are we signing up more enterprises? Like, are they using these different features? How are we tracking on it? And we can start to see all those different cuts and they can get updated in real time. So this is not just about one, this helps leaders like crazy because, like I said, in SaaS companies and especially high growth companies, the biggest issue is not having access to data to make these decisions fast enough and know when to change course or when to continue. And that's what this can help with. So it's building, good views for leaders to be able
Mm.
to make these decisions, but it's also informing the product managers about decisions on their level as well, so that they can get in there and start to be able to see how their decisions are laddering up to business goals, right? And if they're actually achieving retention goals or if they're not achieving retention goals and things like that. So ideally, we put this into some kind of system that is repeatable, that we can keep monitoring.
Mm. Mm.
The other piece of it
Mm.
is customer and market research. And this is more about aggregating qualitative research, again, to inform product strategy decisions and also help us keep in top of what customers are saying. So this is more about, okay, we have all this external research going on. We've got user research teams doing it. We've got product managers doing it. We've got sales doing it. We've got marketing doing it. We've got product market doing it, right? Like everybody's out there talking to people, support. How do we aggregate all those insights so that we can bring transparency to all the teams, right? We have a lot of times where sales and support have fantastic information and product management has no idea what they're saying because we don't have access to the same tools or it's not making its way back to the right people. And so fantastic ideas die somewhere in a system, a support system that nobody has access to. So in this place, we're looking at things like streamlining user research. So if anybody's going out and doing user research, whether it's a user researcher or a product manager, how do we put all those insights into a repository so people can look at them later? It's also about getting information from sales and support back into a system as well, so we can see what the feedback is from customers or what's preventing people from buying, win loss analysis, that type of stuff. And it's also helping us make better contact with customers. So it could be things like setting up mechanisms of getting out there and asking our customers, like, do you want to participate in research? We do these types of experiments. We do
Mm.
these types of customer interviews. How often do you want to do it? And I've worked in companies where we've built databases of our customers once they opt into these things, that the product managers and the user researchers and anybody can go out and contact them for the appropriate type of research and they're not spending 40 hours a week just trying to recruit people or going to this back to the same company every single day because they have one contact there. So that type of stuff makes it easier and more effective for us to do customer research, but it's not doing the research for you, right? It's not a team of user researchers going out and doing it. It's making it more effective and enabling people in the company to do it themselves. Mhm.
So enablement, like let's say a platform team, you often have in modern companies for IT stuff, more
Yeah.
for product, right?
So what do you mean for a platform team?
Well, in many companies, you find these days in engineering a platform team that kind of
Oh, I get
enables
I
the
get what you're saying.
engineering team
Yes,
to do their work better.
exactly.
And I
Yeah,
was just comparing like
it's
both
platform
worlds.
for product. Yes,
Um,
I like that way of thinking about it. Yeah,
Platform
I
for
like that.
product.
It's
And like, how is that ideally
mhm.
staffed? Like, is there like a common
Yeah. So
ground?
the last piece that we have on here too, just to, because there's three different types of personas for it, is the process and governance piece, and this is more about. So this is our
Yeah.
third pillar. This is more about your product, like standing up your product operating model. And when you think about a product operating model, it encompasses a lot of different things. So this is just one piece of it, but it's the thing that kind of oversees it and makes sure it's working well. And for a product operating model, like you need to be able to say like how we define product strategy and how we make decisions, right? You have to also get the information in to make decisions and how do we do that? And then you have to talk about when do we make decisions, right? How do people work together as well? So this area is kind of drawing up like cadences for reviewing our product roadmaps and for aligning them back to the strategy and making sure that we're on the right path. What types of decisions do we make in each types of meetings? Who's invited to those meetings? How do we make them the most impactful so that we're not just doing a bunch of status updates? It's like we're getting work done in those meetings, right? I hate meetings where you just go in and you listen to a lot of people just rhapsodize like here's all the stuff I'm building. Like that's awful. It's about if I have a bunch of leaders in the room, like I want to come out with a decision, right? What types of decisions do we come out with and what kind of inputs do we put in? How often do we review it? How do we go that way? And usually it's targeted around different levels of strategy and different levels of communication, all the way back down to the Scrum teams. So many organizations only operate with like a Scrum cadence, and that doesn't work for leaders, right? Like that biweekly thing is
Mm,
not what leaders need. So it's like, what else do we need besides that, right? How do we put the infrastructure around to make good product
mm,
decisions? So there's that piece.
mm,
There's also looking at, hey, how do we do like go to market? We've got all these go to market teams. When do they plug into product? How do we make sure that they're plugging into product? How do they know when they're needed? How do they make sure that they're getting updated on what we're going to be building or what we're going to be releasing? How do we coordinate those types of things to make sure that our customers are enabled well? It's also looking at how these other pieces of the organization plug in and how they work with product so that there's a consistent way of working. And it's not like if you're a salesperson, you have to understand 18 different ways of working to work with 18 different teams, right? There's some kind of consistency there. So it's about standardizing the stuff that makes us go faster and that's helpful. And it's about like roadmaps, for instance, um, but not over standardizing every little process, right? It's about making things that are going to help cross functional communication work more seamlessly, and making sure that there's our way of doing it, right? Like our company is like, this is how we do it, this is what we stand for. So with those three pieces, you do need like different types of people on the team for it. Typically, product operations starts with one person, and especially if you're in like a growth stage company.
mm,
Almost all growth stage companies I see start with that data piece because they don't have it. If you do have it and you're fantastic at it, like obviously don't try to reinvent the wheel. But if you don't have it, I'd say like get somebody in with a good background on understanding data. They don't have to be a database engineer, but it's like somebody who can interpret data,
mm.
right? Who can work with the teams to be like, this is the stuff I need and this is how I can track it down in systems. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
somebody who
yeah, yeah.
understands business intelligence tools. Customer and market.
I would say maybe not
Yeah.
explicitly not the data
Yes.
engineer, right?
Yeah.
Because the data engineer is normally interested in in getting the data, but not reading it, right?
Yeah, so they're not, yeah, exactly. They're going to work with the data engineer to get the data, but the data
Mm,
engineer doesn't have to read it. This person's the person who's going to read it. They're going to build your dashboards. They're going to make sure that, um, for example, if you're an executive too, they help you build the board slides and put all that data for the boards in
mhm,
dashboards so you can copy and paste it off and you don't have to like redo your board slides every 3 months forever, which is always an annoyance. Um, so that's a person who can help you understand and picture like this is the information they want to portray. Here's visually how we can show it through data, right? And then they standardize it into tools. The customer market research person is more usually comes from like a UX operations background or a user research type background where they think about it from a process perspective. So they're like, how do I operationalize these things, right? Like, how do I empower people with it? So they have to have a good enough product mindset to think about building systems rather than one off services, but they're like building a system around it. And then lastly, on the governance piece, you usually have somebody with good product knowledge who's done that before, but they're more operationally focused. And there's some great people out there who did start from a product management perspective. They like Christina Tuaro is a great example from Pendo. She she was a product manager and she saw all these things being broken around the organization where sales and product were not coming together to talk or to communicate things correctly. And she said, I want to fix it. And that's how she became the product operations person, the first person they had there. And now they have a huge team around it. But she was like, I want to
Mm.
help our product managers be better product managers. And that was like her goal, right? But she approached it from a product management mindset and she had enough skills to know what needed to be fixed, what needed to be corrected there.
Mm. Mm. Uh, Best governance that you saw in a product company, like how do leaders like ideally align with the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the group, like do you have like best practice?
Yeah, the way that I think about it is everything's done on a time horizon. So if you think about like top down versus bottom up, when do you need to meet? Leaders are typically meeting, I think about it with like the CEO and the VP levels, right? Like think about at different levels getting together and meeting, maybe director as well, but meeting to talk about like how is our product strategy helping us manifest our business goals, right? So we're going to get together on either a quarterly basis, probably a quarterly basis, just to say, hey, are we on track towards our, what we wanted to do? And in that case, we're not looking at team level roadmaps. We're looking at like initiative level roadmaps. We're looking at like higher level roadmaps on that portfolio view across the portfolio and monitoring the outcomes of the strategic intents and of those initiatives, right? But we're not going to all the teams and saying, hey, we need to step through every single little feature that you're building. That should be rolled up into those initiatives. And we need to communicate on that level. And that's where I see a lot of people get that wrong. They're kind
Mm.
of like talking super low feature level about like 1,000 different features that are getting
Mm.
built
Mm.
instead of
Mm.
what that means for the business, right? And when we bring it up to that conversation, that helps us also talk about is anything changing in the market or competitor wise that we need to account for? Are we progressing towards our goals like we thought? Are we hearing any feedback from our customers that are telling us we're not on the right path or that we are on the right path that we need to double down on? So it helps you kind of
Mm.
monitor where you are on that process of reaching those strategic intents, which are long term. And ideally, you're not changing direction in those meetings often, right? But you may come out of there with like, hey, we need to reprioritize or we need to pause or we need to restack some of this because something major happened, right? So we want to look at those things often
Mm.
enough, but
Mm.
not every single day where we're changing direction all the time. And then from a
Mm.
product
Mm.
team perspective, you're going to be looking at those initiatives to the team level roadmaps and talking about are those on track, right? So that's probably going to be the VPs of product or the directors of product and their teams. And then we're going to look at that and say, are there any interdependencies we have to worry about? Are we on track for that? Does this make sense? Do these reach our goals? And we want to be like working it for all of these things. Like technology is always involved. Don't take it as like technology is not involved, but like all of us are coming together to look at these things together and decide if we have any trade-offs on that perspective too. That might happen more frequently, let's say like on a monthly basis, right? Where we're going to be looking at that, trying to think if we have to refine or reprioritize or if anything came up on that level. So, one of the
Mm.
big mistakes I see in this governance piece is that uh, instead of being high, raising themselves up to these conversations of how the business is doing and what are their big pushes with leaders, they go and they ask for too low level information, but there's not somebody in the middle, either as a CPO or anybody in that area to be able to translate it back into, hey, no, actually, these are the things you should care about. I actually had like a CEO once in a 5,000 developer company digging through Jira trying to get information on like what was coming up because he had no transparency right into it. And I'm like, God, there's like tens and of thousands more, millions probably Jira tickets in there. Like you're not going to find what you're looking for in there. And to be fair, he wasn't getting the right level of information he needed, right? He wasn't getting that roll up where he could actually look at it and make decisions, right? And he's going,
Mm.
what is everybody working on? Right? Because they weren't seeing progress,
Yeah.
he wasn't seeing meaningful progress. And to be fair, like to get to those big pushes, it does take a lot of work, right? It takes a long time. You're not going to see something come out every week that makes a meaningful push. So if we're connecting, all the stuff that gets put into Jira back into good roadmaps and scoping it well and talking about it at the right level, it usually eases the concerns of leadership, but it also helps direct them, right? Where they're not making these small kind of like, nagging decisions. They're like they're actually going, "Oh, like hey, something's wrong with our enterprise market strategy because like we haven't been able to sign up anybody or we're churning them. So like what's going on with our initiatives? Oh, wow, we are in progress to actually fix that problem. We've got 18 teams working on it. Fantastic, right? Check." Instead of like zooming all the way down and seeing just like one little aspect of that problem being solved, right? And not understanding how all of it comes together. And I think that's what's important about the governance is like keeping the information to the right people at the right level so that they can make the decisions that they were hired for.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely, and I also see so many companies doing it wrong, and it's also
Yeah.
easy to do it wrong, right? To really like in a QBR, really double down on a feature and then dig deeper and share ideas about that feature, etc. It's not how it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be. So really great, lots of insights, really like lots of value. Um,